we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby, let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I am Allie Ellery, coming at you live from Pensacola, Florida. As always, joined with me in now beautiful Cleveland, Ohio, we've got Dustin. Dustin, how's it going?
It's like 40 light rain showers. I'll take that over 12 to 14 any day.
Sure.
It's funny when you've been so cold and I've lost all this weight. Now I'm even colder, right? Like it's like you lose weight and you don't have as much insulation. I will tell you this. It was 40. It was almost 50, I think, yesterday or the day before. You would have thought it was 80 outside to go from 15 to 50. Like it was like, let's go. Like, when can we have spring here? I think everybody in Cleveland, this has been the worst winter in several years. They are ready to have some nice weather. But guess what? March 1st is just right around the corner. So let's go. The Guardians are spring trainings going. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of buzz right now.
Yeah. Well, this is. We're almost out of that dead period. I would say like the past 2 weeks were just miserable time for sports fans because you don't have any baseball. It's cold out. There's no golf. Nothing happening with football outside of trade requests and things like that. I mean, it's got the NBA, but then they had their all-star situations. It was just like this like weird dead period of sports nothingness. So as we go down the next, week, we're going to start welcoming those beautiful things of life back, the beautiful things of sports back. You've got the NFL draft. Obviously, we're going to talk about the scouting combine that's happening this week. We have a conversation with Nathan Zegura upcoming here in just a few moments. He is there. So we got some great perspective from that. So we'll have some football content as it pertains to the upcoming draft. We're going to talk about all of that, but there's just more buzz. There's more to talk about, more to see, more to do. There's just more. And your Cleveland Cavaliers are just unstoppable.
48-10. That's right. 48-10.
Beautiful.
I got to tell you, I love going to the games. I love being downtown. I love being able to walk over there. But, someone was talking about, anybody that, you like to sports bet. And if anybody had like, Cavs 48 plus wins for the year, like anybody that did any of those kind of bets, like, prop bets, like to just see what they're paying off right now, because I don't think even the most wine and gold colored glasses Cavaliers fans would probably not tell you that at this point in the season we'd be 48-10. They just would be like, nah, you're crazy. Go back to wherever your dreamland is, because that's not even going to happen this year. It's crazy. But and then the Guardians, they're doing their thing. They're going to, in Cleveland, it'll be, not very long, like a month or less. It seems like it'll be snowing that day or 60 degrees on opening day in Cleveland.
You just never know.
You'll get one of the others. So.
You just never know. All right, we're going to kick it off. We've got some things to talk to you guys about. First and foremost, we're going to tell you about our friends over at Stadium Mustard. If you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste, beloved from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. By the way, it's loved by millions, so be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. We talked about the NFL Scouting Combine. Some news that has come out of that. We've heard from Kevin Stefanski today at his press availability yesterday, Andrew Berry. Some kind of prominent news things that came out of that. Dustin, let's just get right into what Andrew Berry talked about yesterday. A couple of things. Very adamant on not trading or not having any interest in trading Myles Garrett. I've seen it floating around that they're working on a deal, but I've also seen that been kind of debunked. So right now, it really doesn't look like that's moving at all. And if they are going to work on a trade, I would not anticipate a trade until after June 1st. Well, yes, of course, but it wouldn't happen until after June 1st, or that's when the trade would be finalized, of course, just based on cap numbers. But even in the interview with Nathan Zegura that we'll share with you here in just a few moments, he even kind of said on there, like, yeah, Myles, like, not even really worried about it. And on Cleveland Browns Daily said the same thing, like, oh, that'll get worked out. So if that's kind of the temperature on that situation within the building, I mean, Browns fans, that's something to be optimistic about, that Miles could potentially return to the team this upcoming season. Obviously, that depends on a lot of factors, I would imagine. What happens at the quarterback situation, what kind of assets they would get in return, a lot about that. But Andrew Berry was pretty adamant, no interest in trading Miles. He did say something that I think shocked a lot of people, and that is that they will allow Nick Chubb to test the market. However, I know a lot of people were kind of in a frenzy about that in reports after the fact, making it fairly clear that the Browns will match any offer that is made out
Sure.
with the other teams with Nick Chubb. What else you got?
Well, and that's to say, when it comes to that, I know people were like freaked out about it, and I was even kind of like, well, that makes me sad because we love Nick Chubb, right? He's the face of the organization. And then I was like, well, there's a lot of guys that go into this situation specifically, and they want them to test the free agent market just to see what the market bears. That's not a terrible thing to do, right? I mean, Andrew Berry doesn't like to overspend unless it's on quarterbacks. But
so I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah. What he said in his press availability was, historically under Andrew Berry, they don't overspend in free agency. It's the trades that they end up spending a lot of money. So he kind of flat out said that.
Yeah. Well, what I guess I'm saying is, like, if he tests the free agent market, and to your point, he doesn't overpay, if a team offers him, we'll say, a 1-year deal at $4 million, right? And then the Browns say, well, we weren't really there, but we'd like to come back for $3 million. He probably takes the deal at $3 million. I mean, like, if the numbers aren't way off, he's going to come back to probably Cleveland. And he's already said he'd rather sign back with Cleveland. But I think it gives the organization just to see what the market feels like he's even worth, and then if they're way far apart and he leaves, that's really sad, right? Because the Browns didn't see the value there. So that some other team may have. But the truth is, we love Nick Chubb, but he's had some gruesome injuries. And he's approaching 30 years old, and he's not the quarterback from even 3 years ago. So, I mean, it's just the truth. And so you have to go out and see what that market bears. And I don't have a problem with that, because again, I think he'll come back on a hometown deal, but I don't know. It's just,
I'd like to think so. Also, I think based on the letter that he wrote to Cleveland, describing his passion and love for Cleveland, I anticipate that he would want to ride out the rest of his career here. Now, of course, we know money talks, and maybe he gets an offer that the Browns, for whatever reason, can't match, and he takes his talents elsewhere. I think collectively, as Browns fans, we're going to be devastated. Like, that is our guy. We just absolutely adore the person, the player, Nick Chubb.
Well, and here's the thing, because he is a free agent, I mean, I don't think he would do this, because, like a lot of people said, for his own legacy, he probably wouldn't sign with a team like the Steelers or something like that, because for his own personal of what he feels and knows with that rivalry and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I go back to the Giants, the Giants owner in that video that went viral that said, I'd have a real hard time watching Barkley in an Eagles uniform because he's by far our most popular player, and I'm going to have a lot of sleepless nights. Well, I'm thinking the GM of the Giants has had a lot of sleepless nights since they let Barkley walk out of the building. So, I mean, that's the only thing I don't want to have, this nightmare to go see Nick Chubb go to a team and then win a Super Bowl. I mean, that would just rip our hearts. Now, here's the other thing. This fan base has changed, Allie. If you look at the tea leaves and you look at what people are commenting on social media, they have the same opinion of Nick Chubb as they do Myles Garrett, and like, well, if he leaves and he does go win a Super Bowl, good for him, because he can't win it here. They have the same attitude about Nick Chubb as they do Myles Garrett in that situation. Like, yeah, we wasted away your great years, and we're sorry. You got to the playoffs a couple times, or whatever that was. We're sorry, right? We wish you could have gotten a better deal here in Cleveland. But it's interesting. The fan base is not like, they've changed. Like, they're not pissed now. They're like, we get it. Which is interesting that the fan base, and you've seen this, it's different. That wasn't the way it was of the past. Like, we were angry that, well, we did it on this podcast. We talked about, like, Njoku. Don't ask for to to go somewhere else. This is the best fit for you. And now look at his attitude. It's like 180 compared to what he was then. So yeah, but the fan base is definitely like, man, you're leaving. We get it. Like we kind of.
So I think Browns fans are so pissed at this organization that like they are just resonating with the players in the sense of like, hey, if you don't want to be here, like I wouldn't want to be either. Like I understand, just not more or less coming from a place of understanding. We're beyond mad. We're beyond disappointed in what has happened due to this front office and this organization just wasting away the talent of. But actually, let's take a step back. I mean, let's look at last year last year and the year before, coming off of that going into the playoffs. If we're looking at that team and we say, hey, who are the most prominent members of this team going forward that's going to help us get to potentially a Super Bowl? You're going to name guys like Joel Bitonio, Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, JOK, and all of those guys outside of Denzel Ward, we don't know if they're going to return to the team this year, this
Right.
next year.
Right.
So it is just crazy how quickly things can change, and I mean, we've said it before, just shame on this organization for just ruining it in such a quick way. I don't know. It just sucks. But there is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was to say, and the fans are going to feel this. And I was even a little surprised. Nathan even felt that way today a little bit. He almost had his fan hat on today when we had him on for our interview. But it was almost like he was talking from a fan, not somebody that is the voice of the Browns. It was like, and what's funny? I was like, man, you were starting to sound like Jim Donovan did at times, where he kind of let loose and said, I'd be pissed too. I get it. I'm a fan. Like you kind of feel Nathan has a little bit of that in him, and you'll see that in the interview. It comes out, but like we got to quit wasting away these things. It like this has to stop. Like it was kind of like, well, obviously we don't want to tease it. Yeah.
I will say this, and I will tease this. If you've listened to Andrew Berry's press conference, Kevin Stefanski's press conference, I think what you get out of Nathan Zegura on this interview, he says a lot more than what Berry and Stefanski said. Now, Berry and Stefanski, obviously, they're in the front office. They're the head coach of this football team. They're going to say a lot without saying anything. But read between the lines with what Zegura is saying. It's a really good interview. Obviously, kind of the primary focus is the draft quarterback. That's what we talked about. There's a hint. Let's go ahead and just get to it right now, Dustin. This interview is brought to you by our friends over at City Barbecue. Enjoy this conversation with Nathan Zegura. Everybody, this interview with Nathan Zegura, live from the NFL Scouting Combine, is brought to you by our friends over at City Barbecue. Go get some barbecue. It's a good time.
Love barbecue.
Yeah, come on. Nathan Zegura, how's it going? How are you?
It's good. It's been it's very busy, very productive, a little bit hectic here in Indy, a lot going on. And obviously for us, we haven't had a first round pick in 3 years, and we're back with the first round pick, and we've got the number 2 overall pick, and obviously quarterback a huge need. And so it's been fun kind of getting everybody's opinions here on the top 2 quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and kind of getting to talk. I talked with Kevin Stefanski today on Browns Daily, Andrew Berry yesterday. We had Lance Zierlein on. I've talked to Dane Brugler. We're going to talk with Greg Cosell, actually, right when we're done with this podcast. Charles Davis, Ryan Wilson from CBS. So we've been talking to a lot of the draft experts, and it's been really fun, honestly. Been really fun.
Well, it's been quite a while since the Browns have been in a position to not even just draft a quarterback, but to draft in the first round. I think the last one was Greg Newsome, and that was a virtual pick. That was post-COVID, so it was kind of chaotic. So paint the picture. What's it like to be in Indy right now? I want to get your thoughts, obviously, on the quarterback situation, but just paint the picture for us right now, because I know it's probably quite hectic and nice to kind of reunite with a lot of the people there.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about it. Yesterday, for me, my combine peaked early yesterday. I got to spend about 30 minutes with just myself, Charles Davis, and Greg Cosell talking quarterbacks, talking tape, talking a bunch of football and life. And that's what's so special about it to me is everybody in the NFL world is here. Everybody. You've seen some coaches not come now, but I mean, for the most part, every coach and GM, every scout in the league is here. All the people who cover the league, all the people that, you get to know and get to respect and befriend around the league and just kind of talk ball with is they're all here. And so that's a very exciting thing. That's my favorite part of the combine. And a lot of what goes on, here that I would say is the most important stuff or the most interesting is not stuff that you see on TV. It's the stuff that happens, out and around Indy at prime, at midnight in the bars and people talking to JW Marriott. Those are the places people go. So I love it here. It is. There's a lot of energy, and it's it's one of those things where everybody's got hope again, right? And for the Browns, the combine has kind of been. It's still very important, but when you don't have a first round pick, and in some of these cases we didn't have a first or a second round pick, it's different. Now you're picking second and 33rd. You got 5 of the top 102 picks. It's an opportunity. It's a draft that can really kind of reverse course on what was a very disappointing season. And so, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of anticipation. There's a lot of obviously opinions and very strong opinions about what the Browns should do. But one of the cool things is you kind of get here now and you've got a little bit of a consensus on what's going on. And on one hand, it's, most people think that the Titans are not going to take a quarterback at 1, that they're going to take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, that they are open to move out with, the Giants and the Raiders as being, possible teams that would come up for a quarterback. I think the Browns have to be considered a possibility to just go get to number 1. I think we all remember 2016 when the Titans had the first pick, the Browns had the second. Browns really wanted Jared Goff. They knew the Titans weren't taking a quarterback, and boom, the Rams jumped up. They end up getting Jared Goff. So there's a lot at play there. Matt Stafford's being talked about with linked to the Giants, and now there's reports that Tom Brady's whining and dining him with the Raiders. So which is crazy that he calls games on Fox. He's an owner and he's able to do these. I don't understand any of it, but so that's those are the big things that affect the Browns the most that you're hearing. And, Adam Schefter reported yesterday, the thing that he's the most certain about in the drafts, the Browns will take a quarterback at 2, which is certainly music to my ears. I think it's the most important thing that they can do this offseason is take that young quarterback. And you're getting kind of a consensus. I would say it's maybe 75% of the people I talk to have Cam Ward as the top quarterback. 25% Shedeur. They like both of them. I think that, you talk about Cam, it's the tools, it's the best arm in this draft, chunk play machine, immensely talented, has gotten better every year, total leader. But there's some concerns like Lance Zierlein kind of compared to Brett Favre. He's going to, hurt you as well as help you. But if he does it more, maybe he ends up in, the Hall of Fame like Brett Favre, but he can make those big chunk plays. Whereas Shedeur is kind of field general. And he mentioned, saying he's not Tom Brady, but the way that Tom Brady won by dominating from the pocket, dissecting a defense, being accurate, understanding where the football should go. Those are the things that Shedeur Sanders excels at. And the questions around him are more, his arm isn't the most elite, but it's certainly NFL adequate. It's kind of, is he going to be podcasting every week? Is he going to have, his dad ragging on the coach or the GM if things aren't going well? And so those are the things that they've got to get answered. But everybody here is pretty, I think for the most part, definitely thinks that this is a draft where you have an opportunity, number 2, to get one of these guys and turn things around. It'll be interesting. As I talked to Kevin Stefanski today, he loves decision-making, accuracy, and toughness. Well, that sounds a lot like Shedeur, but at the same time, Cam Ward is a very accurate quarterback and very talented as well. So it's going to be interesting, I think, the next few kind of months to see how these 30 visits go, how these things all play out, and what it ends up looking like.
Great question. So, here's a question I have. So, great to see you at the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission, by the way. That was a great trip.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Jim Donovan. And
that was emotional. Yeah.
I know. I was like, okay, there's not a tear, there's not a dry eye on this house tonight now that we're doing this. I was like, this is supposed to be a celebration. But of course, we all Jim Donovan. My question to you, again, because we do know Andrew Berry is a wheeling and dealing and he knows how to really work a draft. What are your thoughts on a possibility where a team does call the Cleveland Browns at number 2 and says, hey, we want that number 2. And, maybe it is a Will Howard or someone like that the Browns maybe have more interest in, or someone like that at the top of the second. Do you see a scenario like that where the Browns really capitalize on this draft and maybe those top 2 guys aren't their most focused guy and they see more out of another quarterback? What's your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
That would not be my ideal scenario. Just this is me personally talking. I've seen that movie. I've seen us do that many times. You look at, it's hard enough to hit on a quarterback. When you start getting outside of the top of the draft, it becomes harder and harder and harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. And so I want to play the odds. I looked at something last year. The top 12 scoring teams in the league, 11 of them had first-round quarterbacks. The exception was Jalen Hurts, who was taken in the second. Of those 11, 10 of them were taken in the top 12 picks. 6 of them, so half of the 12 top scoring teams were quarterback by quarterbacks that were picked first or second overall. Now, many of those guys are actually on different teams. Jared Goff's on the team that didn't draft him. Baker's on the team that didn't draft him. Sam Darnold's on the team that didn't draft him. But there's something to be said then for that talent, right? The pedigree that comes with that, and that you can't force it. But that nobody here has said, "Oh, this is like the Kenny Pickett draft where there isn't somebody worthy." These quarterbacks are very much worthy. So. By the way, I'm fine with taking one of them and taking Will Howard in the third. I think that you need as many bites as the apple. This is the most important position in all of sports. And, trading down is great, but those are theoreticals, right? They're theoretical assets that you still have to hit on. The Browns have traded down a billion times. And I can think of, back in 2014, you ended up with 2 first-round picks and moved around, and neither one of those guys even made it through their rookie contract. And the next year you drafted 2 guys in the first round again. And Danny Shelton, Cam Irving played long in the league, but certainly didn't provide the impact. So this is an organization that's had a ton of first round picks that quite frankly haven't really materialized into much. We've taken 3 quarterbacks, 22nd overall. None of them have worked out. The Browns have only taken 2 quarterbacks in the top 10 since 1999, Tim Couch and Baker Mayfield. That's it, and maybe that's a reason why we're constantly in this search mode. So that's not, this is just me. The Browns could do that. And what I've always said is, and I believe this asset, this life raft that we were kind of given picking second after that season and knowing that we've got obviously the Deshaun contract we're going to have to deal with for a few more years to come still, is to get a cheap quarterback and you can do that in the draft, and to be second, this asset has to turn into a legitimate shot at a highly thought of rookie quarterback. Yeah. And the one way to guarantee that is to take one at 2. There are 2 in this draft. Take one at 2, because there's no guarantees next year. Let's say you have, oh man, we've got all these ones now. And I don't know that this is a draft where people are moving that way, where the haul would be that significant. But I don't think Arch Manning's coming out in 26. And let's say Arch Manning is what we all think he is. If a team has the first pick that doesn't have a quarterback, which is probably somewhat likely, they're not, it doesn't matter what you have. They're not trading with you. They're taking Arch Manning. So you're in this position. I don't think we'll be in this position again. We certainly hope we won't be. So I'd want to take advantage of it. I get that. And if you do it right, of course it works out. But we have not done that. It's kind of goes back, 2017, we drafted Miles. And now nobody would ever say that was a bad pick. But the fact of the matter is Patrick Mahomes is in that draft. Sure. We could have in that draft stayed at 1 and 12 and taken Miles and Deshaun Watson. And maybe if Deshaun Watson plays his whole career in Cleveland, who knows what that looks like, right? It was as good as anybody over the first 4 seasons of his career before all the other things happen and he ends up becoming a Cleveland Brown. But we traded out of that spot. Houston takes Deshaun Watson, and for the first 4 years, boy, that looked really, really good. We traded down, and in that year, we ended up taking 3 players in the first round. And our quarterback pick was in the second round was Deshaun Kaiser. And I think Deshaun was talented. I think he was in a very tough situation, but you would do a lot of things differently in pretty much all these drafts where the Browns traded down and don't take a Ben Roethlisberger, or then, because the way I think about it is this: we've had, Myles Garrett, who is arguably the best pass rusher in the league and maybe in the history of the league. When it's all said and done, he'll be considered in that ilk. He'll be a Hall of Famer. Joe Thomas was the best left tackle in the history of the league. And I would say there have been 2 stretches where we've had consensus the best offensive line in the league. We had the best running back in the league for a 4-year period with Nick Chubb. Denzel's been a top, 6 corner in the league for a great period. We won 1 playoff game. We've had 2 winning seasons. Why? Because we haven't had a quarterback. So until we get that right, and people, it's so much safer not to take a quarterback. I was talking, we had Lance Zierlein on Browns Daily today, and I asked him, point blank, like, there are no sure things in this draft. No position is safer than any other position. But we all agree, the one sure thing in the league is if you don't have a quarterback, you can't win. And that's been, unfortunately, the story of the Cleveland Browns for far too long.
For my lifetime. For my entire lifetime. And to think that nearly in my entire lifetime, we've taken 2 quarterbacks in the top 10 of the first round. That's crazy. That is crazy.
I know.
If there's anything to be said about the National Football League and the landscape that it currently is.
By the way, it's great to be so youthful that your lifetime is only encompassed by by this period. I wish that were true for me.
No, the Browns are aging me rapidly, Nathan. They are because of all of my stress. But to think that the current landscape. Okay, sorry everybody. I don't know what just happened. Give me just a moment. Let's try that again. Let's see if this will work. If not, that's it. That's the interview. Dustin, I'm going to bring you back on for just a moment while we try to get this figured out. Sorry about that, everybody. I don't know what is going on. I'm going to try to fast forward it just a touch here and see if that'll help. If not, we'll figure it out and put the recording out on its own. But yeah, just technology anymore. You know what I mean? All right, we are going to go ahead and just remove the interview for the time being. I'll let it buffer a little bit. If we can get it to work, there's only about 3 minutes left in that interview. Apologies for the technical issues, but it's always fun, Dustin, talking to Nathan. He's so energetic and so amped up and plugged into the organization. I mean, what were your thoughts in talking to him?
Yeah, I feel like I got an interview with a fan today, not somebody that works in the Browns organization, because he just was like, he was really, I think he was as transparent as he possibly could be, I guess would be the only way I could really translate that. But he was like, clearly we have to deal with the Deshaun contract for a couple more years. Clearly we don't know how to draft a quarterback in the last 10 years. Like he literally was like, okay, I am reading the room that everybody else sees, and I'm just going to call a spade, right? That's literally what he said today. But I do think he brought up a really valuable point. You can say you're going to have a surefire left tackle or a surefire running back that's a more of a low risk, and when we put that interview out there for everybody to watch, so sorry about the technical difficulty, not sure what happened there, but he very much talks about, if you don't have a quarterback, this league has changed, and we're an offensive driven league, and a quarterback really is where it all starts and ends at the end of the day, right? If you don't have a top 10, top 12 quarterback, especially in the AFC where we play, you're screwed. I mean, you just are. You have to go up against, the Mahomes and the Burrows and the Lamar Jacksons and the Herberts, all these great quarterbacks, the Josh Allen, like all of them, right? You have to go up against all those guys. And if you don't have somebody somewhat close to that, good luck. I mean, unfortunately, the Cleveland Browns are in the AFC. Sorry. If they were in the NFC, maybe you can get by with a Brock Purdy. You know what I mean? But you certainly can in the AFC, unfortunately. You just can't. Mm-hmm. You have to shoot for the stars a little bit. And then, there'll be a lot made of this Browns trade, but that's why the Browns went after Deshaun Watson that made the swing, because they were, to his point, looking at what those 4 great years of what he did do for that potential. We went after him with that potential, right? Saying he could compete with those other guys based on the first 4 years in the league. Didn't work out. You got to move on. But
so Larry says you have to. You have to have a quarterback that can score points. Gone are the days of defense wins championships. I mean, yes, that matters. Look at what Philly just did to Kansas City, but they have a quarterback. They have offensive playmakers. They have an offensive line that can take you to that level. Larry says that he convinced me to get a quarterback at 2. And I will say that he convinced me the same thing. A couple of weeks ago, I was like, well, maybe you bring in, I don't know, anybody, and we take Abdul Carter at 2, and then you're looking at Jackson Dart, Will Howard, something like that. And I have to say, Nathan really shifted my perspective on that. There is no such thing as a surefire pick at any round. There is no surefire number 1 overall pick really in any draft. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was the most sure thing coming out of Clemson, coming out of college, than the same level of Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. That's what they were saying, and he hasn't panned out to be that. I don't know. I think it's there is no sure thing. You can't predict injuries. You can't predict situations 2, 3, 4 years from now. So you have to take that risk. And when you look at it at a timeline of only taking 2 quarterbacks in the top 10 since 99, well, you can see why we haven't been successful. You haven't had that person. You have to take a shot. You're although it sucked last year to be as bad as you were blessed with the number 2 overall pick. I think you have to use that on a quarterback. In my opinion, I think if I was Andrew Berry, it's Cam Ward. He's the guy. I think he's got the highest ceiling, the most ready. I understand what Nathan was saying about Shedeur. He's kind of, your field general, if you will. He can go in and make those intermediate throws. He's very accurate. He's very precise. And I think he would fit well in the Kevin Stefanski system. But I think Cam Ward's the guy. I don't know if the situation around Cam Ward is going to be, the best. And that's the issue. I mean, go back to 2018. If you draft Josh Allen, does he become the Josh Allen that he is in Buffalo? Well, Buffalo is pretty dysfunctional then too. But Patrick Mahomes, would he be the best in the league with what Cleveland dealt? So the good news is, coming in as the quarterback going into the 2025 season, you have a more established team. You have a 2-time coach of the year at head coach, albeit, I know a lot of people don't love Kevin, but nonetheless, he still won coach of the year twice. You have a pretty put together offensive line. I know we're waiting on Joel and some others just to see what's going to happen with that. We don't know what's happening with Jed. There's some question marks. I'm not denying that, but it's not 1-15, 0-16. You're coming into a more established situation. But I'd be thrilled. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, sign me up. That's where I'm at now. I wasn't there a couple of weeks ago. That's where I'm at now.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Sometimes the first guy taken in the draft at quarterback's not the one that
Sure.
succeeds the best in that class. So let's go back in our memory. Who else was drafted in the Baker Mayfield class?
So in the first round in 2018, you had Baker Mayfield, you had Sam Darnold, number 3 overall to the Jets. You had Josh Rosen that went to the Arizona Cardinals. Lamar Jackson, obviously, he was very, very late in the draft, last pick there in the first round. You had Josh Allen. Those are your first rounders there. A lot of talent. Of talent.
So think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All those you named, 2 of them have been perennial playoff quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Neither one of those guys were drafted overall with the number 1 pick. So it just goes to show you nothing is guaranteed in the National Football League. Yeah. Even if you think, and the Browns had all those guys to look at, right? And I'm sitting there going, if you don't take Josh Allen, I'm going to scream at the TV. And I did. And I said some curse words. I'm like, why did you not take Josh Allen? Because he's built for Northeast Ohio. But again, what team takes him? Buffalo, right up the lake. So it's like, but that just goes to show you, they thought that Baker was the guy, right? Like, out of all these guys, like, he's the surefire, going to change the organization. It just goes to show you. So to me, to just double down on what you're saying, I'm okay with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, because guess what? Mm-hmm. Cam Ward may look like, again, the surefire best guy this year, and then it doesn't translate to the National Football League. But then Shedeur Sanders comes in and runs an offense. And runs an offense because he dinks and dunks and does all those things. By the way, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ali, but he was the most accurate percentage passer in college football last year, right? Like 76% or something like that, like out of all the quarterbacks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's also the most accurate when it comes to completions. So, and again, he didn't play at he played at a Power 5 school, so he played against Power 5 competition. So it's like, okay, well, maybe they're both even at the end of the day, right? When you look at these guys, but you don't know until you put them into a system and you put the lights on them and you put them through training camp. And you have
to take the risk. You have to take that risk on a quarterback. I mean, like what Nathan said, you had, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in Myles Garrett, the best running back in the league, Nick Chubb, the best left tackle in the league in Joe Thomas. You can draft those players that matter but it didn't matter. What do you have to show for those players?
Right.
Nothing. A playoff win. That's it. Not even for Joe Thomas. You have to have the quarterback.
Joe Thomas would have rather be drafted in the bottom of the first round or the top of the second if it meant he got to go to the playoffs several years in a row. He would do that all day long. If you asked him, hey, you're going to make a few million less a year based on where you're at, but you get to go to the playoffs every year, he'd be like, sign me up yesterday, right? Like it's just the truth. And you know what I like? He said, I love Nathan. Take 2 damn quarterbacks in this draft. Because guess what? If the one you busted on didn't do well, and maybe a Will Howard ends up being like that guy that nobody saw that went to the top, great. You look smart. And guess what? Maybe Shedeur Sanders can be traded to another team and we have an asset and we can build with that. We can use a draft pick on that.
I'm all in. Give me a Washington 2.0. I'm all in.
Yeah. But
why not?
Again,
why not?
Nothing is for sure. And we know this with quarterbacks. 1 out of 4 of these quarterbacks that are drafted is going to be a starter and be above average or elite type of quarterback in this league. It's just the truth.
It can happen. And then you have draft class like 2022, I believe it was, where one goes in the first round, that's Kenny Pickett, and you had Malik Willis. It really didn't pan out. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and there is no sure thing. I will agree with Nathan on that. One thing I was talking about with this offensive line is there's some question marks. So let's talk to David about some of those, especially about our guy DeJuan Jones. This interview is brought to you by our friends over at Lorella Vineyards.
Here we go, Brownies Nation. Larry Lorella from Lorella Vineyards. Dustin Cook from Here We Go Brownies. We're here to talk a little bit about Here We Go Brownies wine. Dustin, let us know.
That's right, guys. The season wasn't what we wanted it to be, but the wine is amazing. Platinum-winning, award-winning wine. Here We Go Brownies wine. Come get it here at the winery or go to lorellavineyards.com. And remember, a portion of every single one of these bottles goes to the Greater Cleveland Food Bank to help those that are in need and hungry. That's right. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
Woof, woof.
All right, let's bring him on. Dr. David Ullery, the husband of the program. David, what's happening?
Hi, Ali and Dustin. Thanks for having me on. Just a nice balmy Wednesday night in Pensacola.
Stop talking about the weather. That's enough out of you, doctor. Enough of that. Not until it's over 50 degrees here consistently can you brag about your weather. But go on.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I don't want
That's fair.
to be cruel to anybody.
We can be a little cruel to Dustin.
I think you just got a free pass, David.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about what's happening at the combine. Of course, some players decide to sit out. They don't participate, and some of them decide to show up only for medicals. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on at the combine, David.
Yeah. So not a ton of opt-outs, at least that I've seen so far, but some of the more notable ones, which you guys have already alluded to, with Shedeur sitting out, but he just opted out not to throw, as well as Ashton Genty. But then when we look at injuries, there's a number who have are not participating because of injury. Probably the most notable would be Abdul Carter. We know that he played in the playoffs against Notre Dame with one arm, and it was pretty impressive to see, and kind of anticipated that he may need some time off. But reading through some stories about that, it seems that while he's not participating in the combine, they expect that he will be ready for Penn State's pro day. They said that he has gotten the green light to resume training, and so it doesn't sound like it's something that may require surgery this offseason. So he may be contributing right away in September when we start seeing some NFL football again. Other guys who are not be able to participate because of injury include cornerback out of East Carolina, Siobhan Ravel, Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, as we know, was injured pretty early on, or kind of halfway through the season. He had a patellar tendon tear, so he has not recovered by any means, which is a little disappointing because I think he really, really increased his draft stock this season with the production he put out on the field. And I think we would have been talking about him quite a lot, and everybody across the media would have been, just because he definitely probably was looking at a potential first-round grade just because of what he had done to elevate himself and be the starting left tackle for what ended up being a championship team. So he's obviously not participating. Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame is also not participating. That their star cornerback, who again likely would have been looking at a first-round pick and maybe still is, but he, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami at the tight end, Colston Loveland out of Michigan, another tight end, and then Michael Williams out of Georgia, who revealed that he really played all season on a bum ankle, injured it early on, maybe even in training camp, but decided to play the whole season on it anyway. So those are really the notable guys who are not participating in the combine due to injuries, but it sounds like most of them will be ready for the pro day. I don't think Josh Simmons will be, but it sounds like the others probably will be. So they're at least going to have some numbers, some data to put out there before the draft. However, even that being said, guys like Mikel Williams of Georgia, he may not run a 40. He may not do some more lower extremity stuff just because it's an ankle injury, or someone like Abdul Carter who has a shoulder problem. He may not, put up bench press reps. So it's just interesting to see kind of who's not available and what they're expecting for their pro day, and then how that translates into draft stock at the end of the day.
During Andrew Berry's press availability, he also talked about DeJuan Jones and his situation. He wasn't saying, he basically said like, hey, the injury itself, the surgery, whatever, doesn't give us a ton of anxiety. So I don't know that what happened necessarily poses too much of a threat for this upcoming season, but I'd like to turn it over to you to learn a little bit more about that.
Yep. So it sounds like DeJuan Jones recently, within the past couple of weeks, underwent some sort of knee arthroscopy. It's on the same knee that was injured at the end of the 2023 season when he tore his MCL. So we know that he tore his MCL and ended up having to do a surgical repair, and he missed the last 5 or 6 games. And then he played last season, obviously broke his fibula towards the end, which is what ended his second season. But unrelated to that was this knee procedure that he just had. And it sounds like they say it's just a cleanup. Some reports say that it was related to the MCL injury. I don't know how true that is. Regardless, if it's something where they think he'll be back for OTAs, if not sooner, it sounds like it was likely either meniscal tear that he could play on, but just kind of was lingering and just needed to be cleaned up, or even like a little bit of cartilage damage. That again, nothing that requires a repair or reconstruction or any sort of restoration, but more just get the damaged tissue out of there so that he can reduce the pain he's feeling and get back to more of a full function. So all in all, it sounds like they're not worried about it. So we probably shouldn't be either. And, we can tend to trust these reports for the most part. It seems like, at least, especially within the Browns organization, they're mostly pretty forthright about the information that they provide. So at least for, I guess, I don't know, one side of the line with DeJuan, he'll be available. Whether that's the right or left side remains to be seen, because as Ali alluded to earlier, we don't know what the other pieces are thinking or going to be doing.
Nope, well, there's some question marks.
So, David, it's interesting because at the Cleveland Sports Awards, DeJuan Jones was there, and he was walking around, and I said, "How you doing?" And he goes, "Good. I got to go in and get a cleanup." So it's funny you mentioned. He goes, "But all is good." So I think that's interesting that you just shared that, because he goes, "I'm just going in for a cleanup." So it is interesting. Like, he didn't seem very worried about it either, and he was getting around. And he's a big dude, but I mean, he was getting around. I mean, he's a big man, but he was getting around. I mean, he wasn't like limping, like things that you would notice, like something that was like really. So I feel like you're spot on. Like, it's going in to just relieve that scar tissue and stuff and fix it so he's ready to go when camp starts. So I also think you're the cat whisperer, because the cats come to see you when you come on the program. So
what are you throwing a dog toy right now? Is that what is somebody shaking your arm, or are you petting the cat? What is that?
No, I'm scratching Ludo and distracting him, because there's going to be there's an Instacart delivery at any minute, and I don't want him to lose his mind when he sees them at the door. So I'm just trying to maintain his attention over here.
That makes sense. Because he goes crazy. He goes crazy.
Yeah, you won't be able to hear anything else.
Anybody coming towards the house, he goes into
protect mode.
Protect mode, yeah.
He makes his presence known. The UPS guy is his arch nemesis. They are just, that is his enemy of all enemies. David, got a question here from Joe. He said a non-football related question. He was in the Marine Corps and wonders why the doctor stayed in the military and didn't go into the civilian sector. Why would you do that, David? Or others.
Sure. Anybody in particular, or nobody in particular. I mean, well, one, at the end of the day, I guess that's not the only reason to serve. But two, obligation. When I joined the Navy. I did ROTC in college, and my anticipation was I was going to go be a pilot. I thought I was going to go fly some jets or helicopters, and that quickly did not pan out. And I realized very quickly in college that I enjoyed biology and medicine much more than physics and those sorts of harder sciences, if you will. So that's part of it. I just have a lot of time to give back, and I don't really have a choice. Talk to me in 2030 and we'll revisit that.
Yes. For those of you that don't know, David is active duty. He's still currently in the Navy, so he owes his time. That's why we're down here in Pensacola. And he asked, "Are you going to stay in?"
No. 5 more years. 5 more years, and I will gladly separate and be grateful for my service.
So what you're saying, David, if I need any surgeries 2030 on because I did something stupid and ran the wrong way, that you could give me a referral, or okay, that's good to know. 2030. So keep going.
The only other thing I saw that's really kind of relevant for the Browns is that Andrew Berry did mention that Deshaun is rehabbing in the Browns facility and will continue to do so, at least for the next foreseeable future. So don't know what that means. Can't really speculate. I don't want to read into it too much, but he's at least showing interest in sticking around on his end. What that means long term and whatever else, I don't know.
That's awkward to me. It just seems weird, but okay.
Just another thing too, and David, I know you're probably not equipped to talk about this because there is no news on it, but Andrew Berry did also mention JOK, and basically made a comment of along the lines of like, still there is uncertainty about his ability to come back to football. Not only just coming back to play for the Cleveland Browns, but to come back to football. And I don't think that there's been any news otherwise on that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up in conversation, but I don't know that we'll be able to drop any new knowledge.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like there really hasn't been anything revealed necessarily about it. You gotta just Google it today, a JOK injury update, and the headlines kind of match what we know, that it's kind of shrouded in mystery at this point because there is nobody talking or revealing anything about it. Andrew Berry, like you said, was asked about it, and his answer was vague. To quote him, he said, "I wish I had a specific update for you on Jeremiah. I would say that he's slowly making progress. He's going through all that's required medically, but I don't have anything specific." And he left it at that. So, apart from anything that Jeremiah may want to tell us at any point in the near future, we probably won't know until we start getting into the preseason routines. Once the draft is done, once we start looking at OTAs and camp, maybe we'll get some more information, but they don't have to reveal any of that necessarily because obviously he can maintain his spot on the roster and just be placed on the IR. So it's I hate it. I wish we knew anything just about him. And is he functioning normally? Are all of his extremities working? Does he have normal sensation? Is there any actual deficit, or is it just a very cautious, take our time, make sure everything's working sort of picture? I don't know. And hopefully we hear something good at some point.
Yeah, definitely. All right, David, thanks for joining us. We always learn a little bit more every time you're on.
Thanks for having me,
David.
Of course.
Thanks,
go
guys.
Browns. Thank you.
Go Browns.
That is Dr. David Ullery, the husband of the program. That was brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. Dustin, real quick before we turn it over, I've got a couple of questions here in the chat I want to get to, but why don't you tell our listeners about our friends over at Legacy Integrated?
Yeah, guys, Legacy Integrated, new partner this year. Integrated assists individuals with hands-off, diversified investment options that generate passive income. Email Brian at thelegacyintegrated.com with an email subject line passive income to schedule a free introductory call. Think about it. No trash, no toilets, no tenants. Their focus is hands-off passive income. That's Brian at thelegacyintegrated.com to learn more today. Passive income without having to own it and take care of it.
There you go. There you have it. Also, want to tell you about our friends over at True Fan Travel. They have the ultimate fan travel experience. They are taking over stadiums and cities worldwide, fueled by the passion of the most dedicated fans. True Fan Travel unites fans through all-inclusive sports travel with seamless accommodations and exclusive experiences. Together, they create unforgettable memories that celebrate the love of the game and being together. So be sure to check them out. A really interesting comment here.
Yeah, go ahead. Use code Brownies for $100 off your deposit to London. Brownies, $100 off. It's our personal code that we get to use with that. Brownies.
Yeah. Our friend Bud King brings up the Browns are not going to Greenbrier this year, and he wants to know why. So Kevin Stefanski said today in Indy that they will not spend the first week of the 2025 training camp at Greenbrier there in West Virginia. Previously, they would go down there just to build team chemistry. They'd walk through meetings, kind of do, walkthroughs, things like that, just to kind of kick off training camp. But I think the biggest thing, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I think the biggest reason that they went was to try to build team chemistry. I think it's interesting that they're not doing it. I'm in the camp of, hey, this is probably a good thing. Stay in Berea, stay home, and for lack of better words, get your shit together before we go into this season. So I think this is probably for the best. I don't know why. I think probably there's some turmoil. You do. Let's hear it.
I do. Rein it in was what I was told. Rein it in. It's time to rein some stuff in. So, which that makes sense if you're going to rein it in. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think some people saw it as a country club a little bit going to Greenbrier. They got again, not in Berea, right? Stuff like that. But quite honestly, I think it's to rein it in a little bit, but for a lot of reasons. Stefanski's got to be laser sharp this season with his staff, right? And the new guys that he has on staff. And this is a very important season for the Browns in a lot of ways, for this GM, for this organization, for this owner. There's a lot at stake this year, and I think you're going to see a lot more. Just not that the Browns weren't focused before, but I really do think they got to be laser sharp this season with everything they do, and it has to be done with conviction, I guess, is at the end of the day, with this organization. And you're right. I think they want to rein it in, and that's what I heard. And there's no more Greenbrier.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing at the end of the day. And you're right. I think a lot of jobs are at stake here with this season and what's happening here. I mean, I've got something to put up. I don't know if you guys got to see this, but the NFL grades came out. This is voted on by the players. I know it's kind of difficult to see, but
room, all this,
yeah. So they came in 30th altogether. Obviously, that's not good. 30th out of 32. So let's go through this real quick. Treatment of families, they got a D+, that is 28th in the league. Food and dining, C-, that is 26th. Nutrition, B-. I have heard that the nutrition is actually quite good. Nathan Zegura actually talks about that all the time on Cleveland Browns Daily. Locker room, F-, 31st in the league.
Build a new stadium.
Jeez. Training room, D+, training staff, C-. Weight room, A, that's the highest grade here. Strength coaches, B+, team travel, D, head coach, C, and then here, let me get rid of this banner here real quick, and then ownership, C+. So obviously they did not grade well.
Yeah.
So they gotta rein it in. You got some opinions? Let's hear it. You got a microphone.
Yeah. So one, they went out of their way and they said they're going to focus on upgrading the workout facility, and they did that in Berea, and it got an A. So that grade is well deserved based on the upgrade of the workout facility. That was a lot of work they put into, and I got to see it. They did a lot of work on that. The locker room sucks. The stadium sucks. Yeah, you're going to get a bad grade when you have a bad locker room, right? And that's why they want a brand new world-class place where players feel it's an amazing place to come play and have an amazing locker room. Again, I've heard the same thing. The food is great there, and the nutrition program and the dietitians they have over there do a hell of a job. So all the things that you hear in the public, right? Like those are things that came out in this thing. And then, the Browns kind of lost the wheel this last year. They got a C for coaching because they felt like some things. I mean, there's also, a former coach that does a podcast with us, and he's been very, transparent and how he's felt, how it's been a little wobbly at times over there, with losing some Callahan and some folks like that. So I'm not surprised they got a C. That's passing, right? You pass. Mm-hmm. You don't fail. You don't have, you're not an A+ student. You pass. And
middle of the road.
Yeah. So the grades don't surprise me in that sense because if you look at our facilities, here's this crazy thing. And I'm pro dome till the cows come home. This was a stadium that was built quick, slapped together so they could get a Cleveland team in here. And we didn't care then in 1995. We didn't care. We just didn't. We wanted a new team that was going to launch in 99. And damn it, you're going to build the stadium. Well, I heard they were putting screws and chairs in, a week from the season kicking off. So they built it on the quick. And when you build it on the quick and the NFL's throwing money in, they did it on the cheap. It's falling apart. You need a new stadium. Even if you renovate it, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. It ain't going to give you a brand new, exciting, huge locker room. It's not going to do all those things. So build a world-class facility that we can be proud to call home to the Cleveland Browns, period. There it is.
There it is.
I just hate this debate that we're having, and Larry and I are very passionate because he's on one side. I think I almost got him in the dome category, but I'm like, what the hell has that stadium been on the lake done for us since 1999? It's never hosted a playoff game. It's had losing football for 20. It hasn't done a damn thing. It's time to change the matrix. Okay, like what has it done? Like it hasn't done a damn thing down there. I leave miserable most of the time. Like build something that.
Well, for a couple of reasons, right? One, because you're chilled to the bone, but two, because you're pissed because the Browns just lost the game.
Most of the time it's because I'm just pissed. I will tell you this. I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers game, the whiteout game. I loved being in that game in the moment. I didn't care how cold I was because they won and they did it in such a crazy fashion. But I tell you what, you're really pissed off when you're cold and you lost. That's like a double negative.
That sucks.
I think
brutal.
Most Browns fans would sit in 10-degree weather if it meant they got to win every single game. But it's not a good facility. It's just not anymore. It's overdue. And I don't want to put a Band-Aid on something I know I'm going on a soapbox here, but Allie, you lived in this area. And what I'm about to say, I want our audience to hear this. Tell me another individual other than the Cavs owner. Okay, we'll just put the Cavs owner, but he's not going to be able to do this. Tell me another person in this area that's going to step up and invest $2.5 billion with a B billion dollars into Northeast Ohio. There's not a line out the door, in my opinion, of another person that's going to drop $2.5 billion of their own money at the end of the day. There's nobody out there like that.
Well, I heard a rumor that you're going to actually.
Oh, well, yeah. Me and Larry are going to build a new stadium. It's going to be at the airport.
Dustin's going to invest a couple billion of his own.
But think about that. Who else is going to come into Northeast Ohio? Maybe in Miami. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm talking about Northeast Ohio. Who else is going to come in here and invest $2.5 billion? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And it's going to help this region for decades, Allie, for decades. I think, not to change the subject too much, but when you look at the locker room gets an F-, I wonder how much of that is the actual structure, the locker room itself, lockers, benches, things like that. And what's happening in said locker room? No. Does a new stadium fix that? No. It helps certainly, when you've got state-of-the-art facilities, but I don't think
there's bigger problems.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's the locker room, because we heard from Joe Thomas, he doesn't think Stefanski's lost the locker room or that thing in there. There's some players that may not get along in that locker room, but I don't think the locker room is lost. You know what I mean? Because from everything you hear from the players, they kind of have a little, they're pretty gelled, a lot of these guys, but I don't think they've lost a lot. I think it's just it's a terrible locker room problem.
I don't know. Hard to say. We're not there. But from a lot of what we've heard and from what Miles has said, or just outwardly said, requested a trade. You can kind of put the pieces together that it wasn't exactly the most comfortable place to be, especially in such a losing season. I'm sure
Well,
that
sure.
really contributes to a lot of the grades coming off of this just very disappointing season. Of course, they're going to just give the Browns a scathing review. I mean, I would too if I had a really bad year at work and it was kind of not really my fault and I got to grade my employer. Are you kidding me? Of course I'm going to tell them how it is. So I think you get a little bit of that too.
It is funny because you brought up a good point. And Nathan, or we were talking about this, like how Browns fans are, they are very like, I understand why Miles is leaving, or if Nick Chubb gets another opportunity and he wins a Super Bowl, we would love that. You can use that even in your personal workspace. If you've been doing really well with your company, but you just feel like you're not getting to where you need to get in your company, right? You know this, right? And then you go to leave and you give your 2 weeks and your boss goes, I understand. We're sorry to lose you, because they know, they know that they're losing you because of A, B, C, and D, right? And you've laid it out for them. Like, this is why I'm leaving, just so you know. So it's the same thing with us Browns fans. Are like, I get it. I know you're leaving. You've been here 8 years. You're giving us probably 2 more than we probably deserve, or 3, but you know what? You're gone and you want us to leave and it hurts. But we get it. Like, but that was not a thing that Browns fans would have said 5 years ago. No way. They would have been like pissed. Good luck.
Sure.
Good riddance. Like,
You know why? It's because we had hope. We had a little bit of hope then, a little bit of optimism. Like, hey, it can't get much worse than this. And well, here we are. Here we are. All right, we're going over a little bit, but Dustin, before we wrap up, why don't you tell our listeners about Lady Caroline and Greater Cleveland Aquarium?
Yeah, guys, Lady Caroline, spring is going to be here before you know it. Book those trips on Lady Caroline. Lunch and dinner cruises, or if you have a private event you want to go to and use that for your work or weddings or anything you want, it's a great venue to go out on, Lady Caroline. And of course, right next to Lady Caroline is the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. That's right. Go in there, check out the Shark Tank, check out all the amazing displays they have in there, all the different things from all over the world. Take your children, take a field trip if you're a teacher, or just go enjoy it for yourself. Couple hours of the day. And then also I want to give a shout out to our great friends over at We Bleed Ohio, guys. This is really exciting news. We Bleed Ohio, a new sponsor that we have. You can also get your Here We Go Brownies merch, new cool t-shirts there and hoodies and soon hats. So We Bleed Ohio, they've been around for nearly a dozen years here in Northeast Ohio. Look for Allie and I to be wearing some new We Bleed Ohio gear here soon. But no, they're super cool people. And awesome people over there, and you got to go check them out at We Bleed Ohio. Awesome, cool stuff.
All right, Dustin. What else you got? Anything else before we wrap up on a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday evening?
Yeah, we're going to have some announcements about the NFL draft and us being live at the NFL draft coming up in the next couple weeks. Mary Kay Cabot has given us a confirmation for next week. I'm looking forward to hearing. I just feel like Mary just digs and gets all the good stuff. So I think she's going to have a lot.
Mary Kay does. Mary Kay does.
Yes, she does. She's a good reporter. Some people, I always say, but Mary Kay's 99.9% of the time, she's spot on in her facts and double facts and checking ends up. And the Baker Mayfield thing, I think, is very interesting because she was very telling what was going to happen and nobody believed her. And then, boop, it happened. So, but no, she should be on next week, and she'll have a lot of stuff that came out of the combine to talk about. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good show next week with
look for some other
combine.
Yeah, look for some other interviews. Corey Bojorquez is trying to come on the show. He should have been in the Pro Bowl. He was amazing this year. He was one of the things we could say that was amazing about the Browns this year was the punting game. But sad news, though, Allie, friend of the program, I was sad to see Charlie left. I just want to get that out there. Charlie was the longest tenured Brown, 10 years, a decade with the Cleveland Browns. So I wish him well on the next couple years. I think he said he's got at least a couple years left in him. He believes in the league, and he's not done yet. So, Charlie, wish you the best and appreciate you coming on and doing an interview with us. It was a great interview.
Yes, that is Charlie Hewlett, the long snapper.
Sorry.
For those that don't know
who
Charlie is.
That random guy, Charlie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Come on.
Charlie.
I'm assuming the people that are watching our show, Allie, are Browns fans. So I'm like, Charlie Hunter. Or the long snapper, excuse me.
Yeah, no. Gotta say the name, Charlie Hewlett. But yeah, so we'll have some upcoming exciting interviews. So look forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for joining us. We appreciate it. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans, go Browns.
Go Browns.